Hey guys, how are you doing? All right, first thing, let's get it out the way. It's the day after the Super Bowl. You see the shirt, Fly Eagles Fly. Let's go. All right, now that we got that out the way, did a video about how to help your vocals cut through in the reverb or cut through a reverb. And in the comment section, I told you guys, if you leave comments, you leave suggestions, you ask questions, you never know. I just might make a video about it. And somebody asked me, said, Ed, can you do a video specifically about sidechain compression? And yeah, that's what we're gonna do right now. We need to talk about what sidechain compression actually is, talk about some times where you might want to consider using it. And of course, I'm gonna show you an example on screen of how to engage it and show you kind of what it is doing. This is gonna be good. Let's get into it.
McCray Music.
All right, how are you doing? I'm richly blessed. I pray that you are as well. Okay, so sidechain compression is this. So typically when I throw a compressor on a channel, the input of that compressor is going to be fed by the signal coming through or from that channel, right? So if I throw a compressor on a vocal, whatever's going on in the vocal is what's gonna register in my threshold meter, right? It's gonna be the input coming into that compressor, and then I would adjust the threshold based on that level and get the sound that I want, okay? So that's typical compression. Sidechain compression is when I say, you know what? Instead of having the compressor react to the signal from the channel that it's on, I want to have a signal coming from another channel come into that compressor, and I want the compressor to react to that signal instead. So maybe my compressor is on my vocal, but I want the compressor to react to whatever's coming from the snare bus over here. Or, you know, maybe my compressor is on my strings, but I want it to react to what's happening from the guitar channel, right? We saw an example of this in my video on making your vocals cut through your reverb. We had a compressor on our reverb bus, but we had the compressor react to the signal coming from the vocal channel, just the regular signal in the vocal channel, as opposed to the synth signal, right? And so the question will be, well, why would I want to do this? And there are a couple of examples. I'm sure you can always think of more, but I'll give you guys 3 examples of when you might want to use sidechain compression. Before I do that, please take a moment and like this video. Feel free to share it. Please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Let people know the good things that are going on over here at the Ed McCray Music channel. All right. So situation number 1. We have a kick drum and a bass guitar, right, of any kind, okay? And we want to help those two play nice with each other, right? And obviously, we're going to use EQ to do that, but sometimes if things are really dense, we might lose some of the energy in our kick, and we really want that kick to punch through the bass, right? And so we can use sidechain compression. Another term for this is ducking, right? Ducking. So basically when the kick comes in, it's gonna duck the bass down a little bit. Every time the kick comes in, the compressor's gonna react, it's gonna duck the bass down and then come back out, right? Another reason you might do that with a kick drum and a bass is to help add extra energy to the bass. I'm going to show you an example of that on screen in just a little bit, right? So if you have like a dance track or anything that the kick is really pulsing and you want to, maybe the bass is not doing that, and you want to help add some of that pulse energy to that low end and really help the track move a little bit more, using some sidechain compression can really help you to do that, okay? Another example is with vocals. If you have background vocals and you have lead vocals, right? And again, we want to duck those background vocals a little bit, or to some degree, every time the lead comes in, especially in gospel music, R&B, right? We love to ad lib, we love to riff, we love to holler over the background vocals, as opposed to like a CCM track where oftentimes they'll just sing along the same melody in the lead vocal, right? Gospel, we love to come in there and do some additional stuff. You might want to duck that down a little bit, right? That's another example. A third example is, let's say you have a voiceover and you have an instrumental track, and every time the voiceover comes in, let's say doing something for a commercial or whatever, you want it to duck down the instrumental so that the voiceover can be heard, and then you want it to release that when the voiceover goes out so that the music could come back in, right? You see the same thing oftentimes in a live setting, right? When you have the voice of God mic, and when the voice of God comes in, if you have an instrumental track playing, you want that to come down automatically. I saw that very recently on tour, on a tour that I went to, where they had instrumental music playing, and then they had different commercials for the artists come in, and when the commercial for the artists projects would come in, that instrumental music would go away basically, and there was nobody on the board, so this was happening automatically. Instrumental music would go away. When the voiceover or the commercial was done, instrumental would come right back up. I'm pretty sure they were using sidechain compression to do that, right? So those are some basic common examples of when we would use sidechain compression. Let's take a look at an example of this with a kick drum and a bass guitar on screen right now. Let's get to it. All right, so I want to show you guys an example of sidechain compression here. We're going to do an example with a kick drum and a bass guitar. You could take this and apply it to whatever scenario you want involving vocals or vocals and an instrumental or whatever it is that you want to do. Now, this is a completely unmixed and just a slightly edited track, so there's no real quantizing happening here or anything. This is a live drums. This is a live bass guitar. And so, if you're looking, hey, Ed, how come, it's a little off? I understand that. I haven't done any of that. That's not the point of this video. All right. You might want to have additional energy, right? You can use the side chain of the kick to provide additional energy to your bass. If your bass is, not moving as much and your kick is moving more, you can kind of get a nice little pulse going on, right? So let me show you what I'm talking about. Let me just play this part of the song just with the bass and kick isolated. All right, so just from that little part there, you can see that the bass is moving a little bit, but the kick is just a straight drive, 4 to the floor, right? Just driving. And so I might want to add a little bit of that energy, a little bit of that pulse to my bass to make it a little bit more interesting and make the song move just a little bit more. Now, we can see that right now, the compressor here, I have the Pro C2, is receiving its signal directly from the bass. Right? So that's the signal that is feeding into the compressor. So I'm going to sidechain this now. So if you watch the video on helping your vocals cut through the reverb, it's the exact same process. Let's sidechain, and my kick is already chosen here. So that's fine. When I am dealing with this, I have the ability to trim the signal, right? So if you want to, let's say you have your mix in place, and now you're deciding to do this because, after the fact, you're like, and I just want a little bit more energy. And let's say the signal is coming in too hot or too cold, right? You can come in here and trim it. So because this is not mixed, I already know that the kick drum is going to come in a little bit heavy. So I'm going to trim this back a little bit. Let's trim this back actually a lot, about 7 dB. And we can always adjust it if we need to, okay? And so now we know that in our compressor, we also need to go to whatever the sidechain settings are for the compressor. With the Pro C2, it's right down here at the bottom. If you're dealing with a different compressor, it'll be someplace else possibly. And we need to tell it to now receive signal from the sidechain, right? Right now, it is receiving its signal internally. I need to switch this to external, right? So we're going to leave it on internal. We'll let it play. I'm going to switch to external and then watch the threshold change. You can see that it's coming from the kick. Watch. All right, let's turn it on. All right, so we can see that immediately change, right? So now our compressor is receiving its signal from, let's not turn the threshold up like that. It's receiving its signal directly from the kick. And now let's kind of dial it in a little bit. So what I'm looking for here is I want to just kind of get more of a pulse with my bass. And so to do that, I'm going to dial back on the threshold a little bit. I'm going to give it a fast attack, and I'm going to give it a fast release. Let's turn this auto gain off. I'm going to give it a fast release, right? I want when the kick comes in, Boom, want to compress. I want it to release right away. I don't want it to hold. I just want it to give me a little bit of a pulse, right? So let's go ahead and just dial in that faster release. We'll go as fast as we can. If we need to adjust it, we can. But let's dial these in and let's see what we got. All right, that is cool. You can really hear that bass moving a little bit more with that 4 to the floor, right? So when that pulse is in there, that bass is moving even when the bass is not moving. Let's turn it back on. We will disengage it and then re-engage it and see what we got. Disengage. That is doing what I want it to do. All right. Now, obviously, in the context of the full mix, we would play around with this. We would dial this in maybe a little bit differently, but I want you to see what that is doing. And you can see that the kick is actually coming through a little bit more as well because it's, I'm pushing down the bass every time the kick comes in. Again, in this application, I think you would typically want to have a fast attack and a fast release so that kick can come right in and, then that compression can release. We don't want it to start crushing our bass. We just want to have a little bit happening there to help our kick punch through, right? And again, we could do this same exact thing if we're dealing with like lead vocals and background vocals and you need to help the lead vocal out a little bit. You could do the same thing in a live setting or in a voiceover setting where, when the voiceover comes in, we need the instrumental to fall way back, right? Or in a live setting, right? When the voice of God comes in, right? We have an instrumental track playing. We want the voice of God to come and push that instrumental back and then come right back in. Same exact concept. Sidechain, sidechain, sidechain is always what's happening. Now, one of the things that we did not do that you also could do is we could manipulate or filter our sidechain signal here using our EQ. Now, every compressor might not have that capability. The Pro C2 does. So if I wanted to not have it be triggered so heavily by the bottom end, maybe of the kick, let's say the bottom end was really heavy and, it's coming in too strong, I could filter some of that out and maybe have it just be triggered by the mid-range or the top end of whatever it is I'm dealing with. I also have the ability to, again, adjust the sidechain level here as well inside of my compression, and that's apart from the trim that Luna is already giving me. Okay, so I hope that was helpful for you. Again, you can take that and use it in any application or scenario you want, any of the ones that I gave you, or explore. One of the great things about audio is you can just try stuff, right? Try it. Try sidechaining different things together. You could get some interesting things happening. And again, at the end of the day, if it sounds good, then it is good, right? So that is what you want. Please feel free again to like this video, subscribe, get in the comment section and ask questions, leave comments, share maybe some scenarios or times that you have used sidechain compression. We are all here to learn from each other. I am not here to tell you that I am the all-knowing expert that just knows everything, right? We are all learning and growing together, and that's the kind of community that I want to build here on this channel. All right, I'm going to see you guys again soon for another video, and you never know, it might be about something that you wrote in the comment section. So be nice in the comments. Everybody's always very nice, man. But be nice, because if you're not, I might talk about you. I'm not going to do that, but you never know. I'll see y'all next time.